Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 21. It's called The Perfect Mate. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. Being from the UK, of course, the word mate is often thrown around just to mean friend, rather than sexual mate.
Or random person on the street.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's used so casually that you in the same way that you might say, "Hey, buddy," to someone you don't know, just to offer a friendly and greeting before you ask whatever you're going to ask or something, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So you've thrown me off. I was building up to a joke about you not being the perfect mate, but that's fine.
But I've ruined it by instead throwing this out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I'm very proud of myself.
Here we are. Yes.
I have saved myself preemptively.
Don't worry, there's a very ginger man in this. I'll make fun of you later. It's fine.
There's a very ginger man in this, yeah. As soon as I saw him, I was like, damn it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Let's get to that. So this episode, we knew going in that this was going to be Femke Jensen is like this. Well, we get a name for her. It's a metamorph, is what they call her. So there's a lot of metamorph men, but a metamorph woman is like once every 7 generations, so it's very rare. And she has been presented by one civilization to another as a form of an offering for peace, because they've been at war for however long, and the Enterprise is taking the diplomat with her. They don't know she's there at first, admittedly. She's just cargo to begin with. And they're taking them to meet the other diplomat, and that's going to be a big thing. I say diplomat. I think it's the ruler. He must be the ruler because he's getting the wife. So
I would assume so. Yeah.
So that's the basic gist of it. It all kind of unfolds because a couple of Ferengi fake their way on board. They damage their ship or something to we need help. The ship is dying.
Yeah.
And get snooping around the cargo bay and actually wake up because she's in like a sort of stasis bubble thing. It's all sort of hidden. Which, to be fair, the guy bringing her to this peace treaty, he does say that, well, we knew the Federation might feel a bit weird about giving a woman as a gift, so we thought we'd hide it. That is legitimately why she's been packaged this way.
Well, yeah, it has 2 reasons, because there was that, and then there was she might expire within a few days, essentially. Her abilities will run out.
Oh, yeah, there's that, and also just the idea that she might, shall we say, distract the crew.
Yes.
But that was also a consideration, yes. So ultimately, her thing is that it's kind of like an evolution of like an empath, but it's like empathic in a sense where she kind of like slightly changes to fit whatever man she's like attracting to. And she's been trained since birth in a lot of subjects so that she'll have whatever interests the man might have, she'll be able to kind of like just slide into that line of thinking and stimulate those subjects.
And the way it's presented it's not like it's a choice that she's not like pretending. She does change, so then she is also enjoying those subjects as well.
However, she's reaching the age, give or take, where she basically will settle on one person. So the idea is she's presented to her husband, and then she sort of locks in place as that version of herself, and she'll be that for the rest of her life. And yeah, so it's hard not to compare this to like a Virgin Bride, right? This idea, because later on when she's like, oh, I've kind of already like bonded with Picard, and I'm kind of locked into his preferences. Yeah. Like it was hard not to hear that and think, oh, this is like someone's had sex with a virgin on the way to the wedding kind of thing.
There is, yeah, there's definitely that there.
There's a little bit of that, but I think
there's a lot of generic coming of age kind of elements to it as well, though.
Mm-hmm.
Just in a broader sense of, okay, you're growing up, you're getting towards the age of you end of your teenage, becoming who you're gonna be. And there's expectations. So you've been pushed. Okay, you're going to be this or that, and maybe you've got your own plans. You're going to be this and that, and then all of a sudden, you things are different, right? There's definitely that in there as well.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of big ideas here. This episode, it's trying to tackle many different things. Before we get into any further, I should just ask the question: Connor, did you enjoy The Perfect Mate?
Mostly, I think enjoyable enough for the most part, although it's not without its faults.
Yeah, I think I'm a little mixed. I think it's admirable what it's kind of going for. I feel like it kind of doesn't want to really talk about the bigger questions about the existence of this character, and like I kind of left not really feeling exactly like the episode like made its point to me about her specifically. It felt more like the episode was far more interested in just using as a comparison point to Picard and Picard's loneliness and the idea that he, like her, is kind of like destined to never like have someone because he's a devoted captain. He's always wanted to be a Starfleet officer. His job means he can't take or focus on like a romantic life. So when it gets to the point in the episode where it's like he is actually starting to feel things for her and he's kind of getting jealous a little bit that she's going to go with someone else and she's attached to him now, but ultimately she's got this duty to get peace for her people by going with this other dude. Like it kind of feels like it's meant to it's just kind of mirroring him a little bit, and there's a little bit of that in there. And I felt like a lot of the episode as we got later on in it felt more like it was about Picard than it was about her. And don't get me wrong, it should be a bit more our main character, but it felt like it was. I think the big thing it was missing for me, because I was expecting it to happen, is I was really expecting a scene with the Metamorph and one of the female characters of the show. Probably Beverly, because Beverly's the one that Picard talks to about her a few times. And Beverly's very opinionated when she finds out about what's happening, because she's like, wait, so she's like a prostitute then? She's been shipped off to, give to this man. And I was like, why do we never see her talk to another woman? I feel like that was like something that I felt was really missing from this episode. Like, have another woman talk to her and share ideas and thoughts and just see how she responds to that. I don't know. I felt really missing to me.
No, I agree. It's one of the big major faults that I had with the episode.
Yeah. It was getting towards the end, and I really thought it was going to have like a late scene where Beverly like runs into her and like she starts like talking to her about, but even just about Picard and just sort of like maybe some of the ideas of independence and making her own choices and things like that, like would be sort of just naturally in the conversation and just sort of raise those issues. But
yeah, because there's a lot from Crusher of arguing against it, and Picard's like, well, I mean, look, arranged marriages aren't exactly uncommon across civilizations. I mean, look at our history for millennia. And she's like, yeah, but it's different, and he's like, is it though? Essentially, he's like, is it really? And what right do we have to interrupt that? And I'm kind of with him on that. Like, don't get me wrong, he makes a very solid argument here. It's like, yeah, I mean.
It boils down to the Prime Directive, because he even says that it's the Prime Directive. This is their custom, like, and he does ask her. He goes to see her and asks, are you doing this of your own accord? Right? He asks her that. He asks her that a couple of times, and repeats it towards the end of the episode. And her, and she is like honored to be like a pivotal part of what she's doing to be bringing this peace, and she understands her purpose, which is why I kind of compare it to Picard's like duty as a captain.
It is, and I think it's all more interesting because early on, people are like, oh well, she's just been conditioned to be like that from a young age, which is probably true. But by the end, where she is imprinted on Picard, she has his sense of honor as like, well, even if it's not something I want, I'm going to do it anyway because it's the best thing for my people. It's the same, as, oh, well, Picard just puts the ship first, regardless of his stuff. So it's very much, that parallel journey.
Yeah, and so then there are some nice ideas in there. I don't necessarily know if like I always completely buy like all of the romance, if that makes sense. Like sometimes it feels like we're doing this is because it's the plot of the episode, so we're having Picard react specifically this way. And don't get me wrong, when it's played slightly more for laughs, when she's kind of just like affecting like various people, it is a bit more just fun. Whether it's Riker, the first time she looks at Riker when she's just woken up, and Riker's like very serious for it, but his expression immediately turns as he's getting a whiff of those pheromones. He's like, like it just changes immediately, and then time goes on. She goes into this was what really made me think of actually why don't you just put her with a woman, because. Like, it's okay, Picard's got a loophole. He's going to have Data escort her around because Data won't, be affected. And I'm like, yeah, Joe else won't be affected? A goddamn woman. Potentially. I mean, sure, yes. I'm sure there's some gay women on board, but the show wasn't really asking those questions at the time, so that's not...
I'm intrigued as to whether or not the pheromones are strong enough that, it would, like, work on straight women as well to some extent, and that's why it's like, they don't want to go into those questions.
No, they don't. Like, that's why, like, I just realized I was saying it. Yeah, obviously there's examples of women who would be attracted to her, but I don't think the show was really considering that when they wrote this episode. So I don't think it's even that relevant to the conversation. Outside of just the broad spectrum, if you were going to write this now, you would have to consider the idea that it's not just men who might fall for her.
Yeah, if this was modern Trek, kind of redoing this, like this exact same episode, essentially, like, I don't know, in Discovery, it would definitely be, a heavy part of the episode for sure.
Oh, you would have at least one or two women who are, whether it be gay, bi, whatever. Like, you'd have at least a couple of reactions to just sort of say that it is affecting anyone who swings that way, basically, for to put it in a broad term. Yeah, but I mean, she walks into the 10 forward, and like everyone's kind of like gawking at her. She's getting basically catcalled and seems to be kind of into it, which it's kind of funny.
Well, she's into it because they're all into it, right? That's the way it works.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny in a sense because, like, we don't usually see this type of thing on Star Trek, and she does seem to get quite into it, but it's also quite sad that her natural ability is this conditioning to, like enjoy being catcalled because the people catcalling her enjoying catcalling her. There's kind of a sadness to it. It's like, it really does feel like she is an object for the men.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because objectively speaking, yes, it is very flawed and misogynistic that she is this object for the men, right? Yes. But the character is presented in a way that, for her, it isn't a bad thing, right? That's just how she is just, that's who she is in that moment, and so she's enjoying it just as much. Dare I critique this and say that a bunch of men coming up with this character in and of itself is the problem? Oh, absolutely. I am not arguing. The idea being that the perfect woman will mold herself to completely just be happy with whatever you want. Yeah. Right? That is a fundamental thing at the center of this. And, well, some of it is presented in a funny way. Like, the moment with Worf is funny. Worf breaks up some of these guys try to hit on her, and as she's leaving, because she's not really affected Worf yet, he's not really reacted to her, but she turns around and just does this little Klingon's grill at him, and he just kind of like, he's got that look in his eyes, and catches himself and sort of, composes and leaves. But I think, it does, like, it's one of those weird things where, in the context of in-universe, if this type of being existed, there's some interesting ideas to explore. But this idea that we're going to explore Picard's loneliness by presenting him with a character, with a woman who is perfect because she will become the perfect mate for him. That's the whole point. That's the title of the episode. Yeah. It does kind of feel like, I don't know. I guess it does feel like a bit like a fantasy. It's a bit of a fantasy character thought up by a lot of men. Oh, absolutely. But you know what's quite funny about this? Because the concept, they're like, oh yeah, men that do this, all over the place. So common. Right? Did they say that in this episode? Yeah. Like, that's like, they're like, oh no, yeah, tons of them born. We don't care about them. But the women only one in every 7 generations. It's like, maybe you could have brought along a couple of men as well, just to have some contrast. Just, with the diplomat as part of just the retinue. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how you, like, is there any analysis to be had in there, the idea that a lot of men are like, because I don't know if that translates to the real world, because the idea that men are, because if you translate it to the real world, we're sort of critiquing the idea that women are expected to be the good wives to their husbands, as opposed to, so it doesn't translate to the real world, because there's not been a stereotype of men have to. I am not suggesting that would translate to the real world. Yeah. I'm saying that by having that and shifting the power dynamics, it might have made it more acceptable feeling within this episode. Yes, because in the context of that, if you imagine there's tons of these metamorph men running around on this world, you then assume that there is a different dynamic, because presumably there are a lot more happy women, right? Yes. Nothing else. With the perfect mate for them, right? That's the assumption that you have to have, I think.
But then I suppose if you look, so one of the things the old man who's bringing her to this says at the end that one of the reasons why he was chosen for the job is because he's ancient, and he feels it a little bit because he's still a human being. Well, not a human, but he's still
he's like 200 or something.
Yeah, whatever alien race he is. But he says, but even I feel it a little bit. You know, I feel a bit of a tingle. Let's not lie. So he's suggesting that taking like any other like younger man who would be more like active, like bringing her, would succumb to the temptation. The problem I have with that is that if there's metamorph men running around all over the place, I suppose you could argue that that's suggesting that all of the women on their planet are all just a bunch of horn dogs because there's all these men with this, you know, emitting.
Hey, don't
judge.
Don't judge them.
You know, I'm just. But that's the thing. The episode doesn't seem to be interested in actually exploring any of this, and therefore making it a bit more deep, and therefore making us sort of like not just write it off a little bit as a convenient character to explore this with Picard.
I think because of the way it's presented in the episode, and conceptually, yes, that is what it is. And I feel like you could have had so much more and been much more interesting by having a couple of those men that were in. You could have just written a line going, oh, well, they're immune from it because they're metamorphs too, right? You could have just done something like that.
That's a good point, yeah. Like, if that was true, then have a man metamorph bringer.
Right.
Have her
it would have been easy, right?
Yeah.
To do that. And yes, I am making up mythology on the fly here, but that is what they do every week on this show. It's fine. You can make it up on the fly.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm kind of mixed. I'm kind of mixed ultimately. You know,
I think it's mostly fun. I like Picard, like, you know, trying to resist and like being like, oh no, I must be the, you know, the proper captain.
Yeah,
I like all that stuff.
She insists that he comes like visit her in her room. He's hesitant, but it's what she wants.
I think ultimately I would have preferred it if Picard did manage to kind of resist and didn't have any kind of feelings by the end, but she still imprinted on him anyway and kind of took that personality. Because I think that would have kind of given it the best of both worlds a little bit in that, no, she's now, you've got this kind of sad, tragic ending of her basically being aware of how lonely she's going to be for the rest of her life, which presumably is going to be a couple of 100 years.
Depends how old this guy already is, I suppose.
Well, I mean, sure, but I was just going generally on their lifespan. You know, it seems a few hundred.
I mean, I don't know. You know, what happens when she's a widow? So when he goes first, like, does she just get to, you know, enjoy being a widow until she's dead?
I think you've just hit upon what the concept of Picard was supposed to be. In that, well, what happens when he doesn't have to be the captain of the Enterprise anymore?
I've watched season 1 of Picard. I'm not.
No, this isn't what it should have been, right? that idea, exploring that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, that wouldn't put him in a lot of death-defying situations that have a lot of tension for a TV show. So, you know, we have to have action.
You do these days.
Yes, but I mean, yeah. So I don't know. Like, I appreciate some of the things that it's poking at and prodding at, and there's a couple of nice scenes with Picard like resisting her, or when she asked the question, "You must have, you know, met so many life forms. Like, you know, please tell me I'm one of the most unique," or there was something to that effect. Yeah. And he then says, "Yes, you are." And she goes, "Oh, what a lovely thing to say." I'm like, well, you just told him to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's amusing though, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a self-fulfilling kind of element to it, which is kind of her character in itself. She's inherently. It's almost like in that moment, she wants him to do what she does for men. She's saying, "Hey, I want you to give me this response because it'll make me feel good." So.
Well, there's a self-awareness to it from the characters as well.
Yeah. She's not like being stupid here. She understands that she's doing that, and the smile she gives when she gets the response she wants is kind of like this is what it feels like. This is what I do for people. And the fact that she's even asking that, you could argue that's maybe the moment even that she, you know, imprints and has made the choice.
Yeah. Possibly. I think there's an element as well of that, of by her asking Picard to do that, it's like, hey, you know, tell me what I want. You know, give me what I want, and
tell me what I want, what I really, really want.
Yeah, exactly. And Picard does it, right? Obviously, because it's not exactly asking a lot. It was just say this one thing, But then she's like, see, that wasn't bad now. And now you feel good because you've made me feel good, right? It's supposed to be like self-justifying, to her, showing why for her it's not a bad thing still.
Yes, but that's why I'm saying, like, this moment of her like choosing to share this feeling with him might actually be the moment of no return, where, because she reveals in a later scene, like, I
think it's important that it never actually tells us or shows us that moment in the show. It's just by the end, it's like, it was already too late.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it's not a bad episode. There's some interesting ideas, but I do feel it kind of chooses to avoid the more interesting things, and as a result, I wouldn't call them plot holes per se, but there's maybe a lot of moral holes that we've kind of started to pick through in this.
Yeah, it's one of the episodes that definitely hasn't aged as well as some of the other episodes. I mean, that said, this show consistently, when it's come to the women characters, has been where it has aged the worst, right?
Yeah. I think part of that might be because, well, it spends a lot of time exploring tough ideas and trying to tackle them in the right way. There's almost this like problem with the fact that they actually have multiple female characters on the show, and they can't actually commit to tackling the characters consistently in that same way they treat each individual plotline that they're tackling. So that's where the problem comes in. I don't know. Or there's just a couple of sexist producers. That's also entirely possible.
I don't even know if I'd go that far. I think it was. I mean,
there is one.
Sexist, but
there is at least one.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I don't think it was like a conscious decision to be like, I'm more of an unconscious bias, right? And like, okay, there's a writing room full of men, and this is just kind of how it came out at the time.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Part of this is that it was a writer's room full of men. There's no denying that. But so yeah, there you go. Perfect, mate. That's about all I got for you. So what's coming up next time on the voyages of the Starship Enterprise? We have an episode called Imaginary Friend.
Uh-oh.
Here's the description on IMDb.
Uh-oh.
A powerful, potentially dangerous energy life form intent on scouting out the Enterprise steps into the role of a girl's imaginary friend.
I'm going to hate this one.
The image for this is just two children. It's two little girls.
Oh, why? Tell me this is the one with the bad rating that you threatened me with last time.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Just got to get through this one.
Yeah, a lot of gold after this, but you have to get through this one to get to it.
From that, it's obviously bad enough that it has a bad reputation anyway, by the standards of this season, at the very least. I don't know how it ranks amongst the show, but in this season, but it's pretty well documented at this point that episodes focusing on kids tend to be, my least favorite aspect of most TV shows, but especially on this show. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to this one.
I actually recognize one of the little girls.
From what?
Well, that's the thing. I couldn't tell from the photo. I was like, oh, she looks familiar. What's she from? And I looked out at the cast list and I clicked on the one that had a picture. And the first thing that is listed for is Third Rock from the Sun. She was Tommy's first girlfriend in Third Rock from the Sun, August. But before Alex Mack became the regular girlfriend. So there you go. There's a weird bit of, I don't know, trivia for you. Enjoy.
Yes, trivia. Looking up on IMDb.
It's a weird connection, if nothing else. I don't know if she's the real girl, the imaginary friend who's trying to take over the Enterprise. I don't know.
We'll find out, won't we?
We'll find out next time. But let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. We always appreciate it. And of course, you can head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support all the content for as little as $1 per month. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And somewhere out there, Wesley Crusher is morphing into a person who will make other people happy by not being a total screw up.